Five, four, three, two, one. Mr. Davis, you're in Youngstown to speak for Model Cities program. What are you going to say?
Well, first I'll get up and say good evening, and I hope that I get a warm reception. What I'd like to talk about with my friends and fellow citizens in Youngstown is a problem that I think is peculiar to us black folks at this stage of the game. My feeling is that black progress depends directly upon black unity, and black unity as expressed in black votes, black dollars, and the use of those institutions by which black folks have historically done things for themselves. I think the time has come for blacks to take another step up the political ladder, to reach for political, social, and economic power on the American scene. And I think Model Cities is one of those governmental agencies that gives a real opportunity for people to take the benefits handed by the government, benefits for which they pay out of their taxes anyway, and excuse me, to use the monies or whatever the government provides to help themselves, to help their own communities. The history of groups in American society proves that where minorities are concerned, the progress of the individual depends directly upon the progress of the group to which he belongs. And unless and until blacks and Puerto Ricans and American Indians and Chicanos learn this fact, we're going to stay right at the bottom of the economic ladder. When we learn what the Irish learned 100 years ago, what the Jews learned, what the Polish learned, how to use our collective weight, political and otherwise, then we move up the ladder. Now, being the biggest minority on the Americans, representing numerically from 10 to, about 10% of the population, we have a tremendous political clout, but we must learn to use it. I suppose you've read that this last census has proven that more and more cities, inner cities, are becoming predominantly black. Cities like Washington, D.C., Atlanta, areas, a black surplus. Now, this black surplus, when it teaches itself how to vote, use its political black officers and black officials who will respond to black needs, like the whites leaving the inner cities to the blacks. Now, the blacks can sit in the inner cities and rot and starve to death, which I don't think they will do. They can look around and say, now what happened? They didn't even speak the language. They were uneducated, 24%, whereas in now dropout rate is only 12%. How did the Italians, for instance, get up off the ground and move into the inner citadel of American power and society? Well, there's a way in which it was done. You have to look at the way they did it and say, now what did they do then that we can do now that solves our problem? And I have some ideas on what they did then and some ideas on how we can use what they did then to help us in our struggle now. And that's what I come to Youngstown to talk to my brothers and sisters about.
You're based in New York City, right?
Right.
What's the Model Cities program like?
Well, I'm ashamed to say that in New York City, we have a dreadful situation in the Model Cities program. A lot of the monies that are allocated to New York City going to the federal government because we have not yet succeeded in organizing the city or the communities in the city in such a way that they can constructively. A lot of inner city politics, a lot of misunderstanding among the people, a lot of problems and competitions that have yet to be worked out. So that Model Cities in New York has proven a profound disappointment. One of the reasons I'm glad to be in Youngstown is that it's not that the people get the funds from the federal government. They help was meant for. So one of the reasons I'm here is to see how the Youngstown people are doing it so I can go back. Hey, Now, so that this is how we do it in Youngstown. Look, fellas, let's do the Youngstown thing.
Yeah. Actor. And I have an interest in acting. I'd like to know what's
All right, day. Few this year, and there's been in a time of year in New York, so many places that there are houses for move the other guy out and behind the musical basically responsible has moved 3 times, you know, and it's been on Broadway. It's been on Broadway a year and a half. Moved 3 times because the housing shortage in New York for theater is usually disastrous. I understand now that this year there is no housing shortage. There are not that many plays coming into Broadway, so you're going to have some dark theaters. And the off-Broadway scene, where a lot of exciting things were happening in New York, I understand that there are not much is being planned for off-Broadway either. The theater has been called, the permanent infidel. I mean, not infidel, invalid. Infidel, where that come from? But the permanent invalid. Well, I have a feeling the invalid is about to die. It looks pretty bad in New York this year.
how did
As an actor, by those gratuitous mistakes, which came from going to college in the first place. I don't say college in the first place. I don't say going to college was a mistake. Yeah, there. Town in Georgia called Waycross, and I grew up there. And when I finished, I luckily had an aunt who lived in Washington, D.C. So in order to take advantage of her hospitality and the free meals, I went to Washington, D.C. and attended Howard University. And while I was at Howard University, I met some very interesting people. And I spoke on my life was a man called Dr. Alain Leroy Locke. Dr. Locke was the first black Rhodes Scholar. He was the first recognized black critic. He was the first black critic to write for the encyclopedia. Brilliant man. Been instrumental. Quite a few. Langston was a man he helped. He was an outstanding world sculptor, was a man he Marin, all of these people. Dr. Studied with him, and on one occasion, he asked me, I said, I'd like to be. He said, do I understand from a little town in Georgia? I said, yes. He said, well, is there a theater in the town? I said, oh, yes, sir. I go and see, the cowboy. She said, no, I mean, do you have a theater where live people are? I said, no. I said, have you ever been in? I said, not with live people. You ever seen a play? I said, yes, we did one in high school. He said, no, I mean a professional play. I said, no. And you want to write? I said, yes. What you do. When you finish college, you go to New York. There's a little theater group called the Rose Splendid Players. And you'll meet a man named Dick Campbell and his wife, Muriel Ron. You tell them I sent you. You join the Rose McClendon Players. And you work with them. You act. You write. You direct.